It has been reported by Harvard University in this new study that over 400,000 Palestinians in Gaza are missing. Now, I say that they are not alive because the reality is, remember, Palestinians can't leave Gaza. There's nowhere for them to go to. It's not like some of them could have left and went to Egypt or something like that. No, they were stuck right there in Gaza. So 400,000 missing, these people are not alive. These people are not alive. Let's get into that report here from Harvard University. Shout out to the Cradle for this one. Harvard Link study finds Israel disappeared nearly 400,000 Palestinians in Gaza, half of them children. Now I'm going to pop out here for just a second because we have to scroll past the picture because I can't show you the picture that's attached to that article because you guys know how YouTube can be. But we got to get into this. Very, very disturbing. A study published via the Harvard Dataverse reveals that Israel has disappeared at least 377,000, we'll say roughly about 400,000 Palestinians since the start of its genocidal campaign against the Gaza Strip in 2023. Half of this number is believed to be Palestinian children. The report was written by Israeli professor Yaakov Garb, who used data-driven analysis and spatial mapping to show how the Israeli army's siege of Gaza and indiscriminate attacks on civilians in the enclave have led to a serious drop in its population. Now, this goes back to the information that was provided by Ralph Nader last year. Ralph Nader did the math, and Ralph Nader basically added the number of bombs that were dropped and the density of Gaza. And he was warning people even last year, listen, this number is well over 300,000 people. But yet the number that is being reported at that time was like 40,000. Then it moved up to like 50,000. And there are many of us in independent media that continue to tell you that once all the people or all the bodies that have been discovered under the rubble, that number is going to continue to increase. So if I were to estimate, I'm going to estimate it's probably over 500,000 people. Another way that we can kind of guess that number is the statements that came from Donald Trump's mouth himself. I mean, he kind of let the cat out the bag in a number of interviews. When he listed the number of people, he said the number of people that were left in Gaza. So if you just did the math, that tells you, okay, it's over 500,000 people that have been killed. Now, Donald Trump said that number. Just keep that in mind. Let's go on again a little bit more here about this study. It goes on to say that the 377,000 Palestinians who are unaccounted for due to Israel's genocide are approximately 17% of the Gaza Strip's entire population, which now stands at about 1.85 million. Now, this is important. Prior to the war in Gaza, the Strip's population was estimated to be 2.227 million. So that's something I think Trump actually told the truth about. So that's the number that people should be reporting. And that's the number that politicians should cite. And I'm still hearing people say 50,000 people. Some are saying 60,000. But they're underestimating the number of people. And there's a reason for that, right? Some people, I believe, are doing this because if they give you the number that I just gave you, then they have to admit, wow, yeah, Israel is committing a genocide. And especially some of these politicians, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that, even though you can see the evidence is there. While some are displaced or missing, a significant number are believed to have been killed by Israeli forces. The professor notes that the official death toll of 61,000 is clearly an underestimate, as victims who remain trapped under the rubble are not included. Now, again, this is what we were telling everybody last year. We've been saying this for so long, and it's sad that it took Harvard to produce a report for people to finally believe these numbers, right? Garb also condemned in the report the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, a controversial U.S. Israeli aid distribution mechanism launched last month. He goes on to say, these aid components seem to reflect a logic of control, not assistance, and it would be a misnomer to call them humanitarian aid distribution hubs. They do not adhere to humanitarian principles, and much of their design and operation is guided by other objectives, which undermine their declared purpose. The UN has accused GHF of being designed to further the force of displacement. Since it began operations, GHF has led to the deaths of hundreds of Palestinian aid seekers by Israeli forces. And this goes back to a lot of the videos that you're seeing on social media where they are going to arrive to get the aid, and the IDF is killing Palestinians while they're going to get aid. Right now, that number is reported to be roughly about 400 Palestinians have been killed just from seeking aid. The IDF is basically treating them like they're in a barrel and they're just shooting people. It's really sad. I don't really see how some of these politicians can live with themselves when they go on to corporate network media, and they repeat these lies because they sold their soul to AIPAC and they sold their soul to Kufi. I don't understand how these people can sleep at night. This is absolutely disgusting. The Harvard-linked report is not the first indication that the death toll in Gaza could, in fact, be significantly higher than reported. Don't forget about The Lancet. The Lancet Medical Journal released a study in January this year revealing that the death toll from Israel's genocide in Gaza was most likely undercounted by 41%. 41%. Then we can talk about the children. Let's talk about the 17,000. They're saying 17,000 children that they can confirm have been killed. And I don't understand how anyone who has children can just look away and just say they don't matter because they're Palestinian. Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. This is coming from the UN Secretary General. His statement was harshly criticized by Israel and dismissed as exaggerated by much of the Israeli public and the media. In the 21 months since, the number of casualties in Gaza has largely remained on the margins of Israeli media coverage, including children killed in the war. According to Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, 17,121 children were killed in Gaza from the start of the war through June 15th. Of these, 937 were infants under the age of 1. Another 4,517 were between the ages of 1 and 5. 6,325 were aged 6 to 12, and the rest, 5,342, were minors aged between 13 and 17. Just a reminder, some of the people, remember the twin babies who were killed right after they were born. You can see more. Don't forget about this young gentleman here, Omni. He was the one that wanted to get to a million YouTube followers. These are just some of them. Yusuf was killed while watching cartoons with his brother. Don't forget about Yaqueen, the girl who never gave up on the joy of life, 11 years old. We all remember Hin Rajab, age 6. She begged for help for more than 3 hours. Don't look away. Don't look away. And especially to all the Christians. Because what they don't like to tell you, if you talk about the Bible, and I said this before, I told you guys, I grew up in the church. So if you talk about the Bible, Jesus loved the children. The Bible tells you this. And to see people sit up there and to make excuses for all of these kids who have been killed And then the nerve of them to use the Bible for the reasoning, it is absolutely disgusting, and you need to get your head checked. So don't look away. These are the children. Sajah Amar, they were killed with 4 of their siblings. Little kids and stuff, man. Maria joined her mother and her brothers. She was killed in an airstrike in 2021. This has been going on for a long time. See, I have to mention this one because I told you this didn't start on October 7th. This did not start on October 7th. Israel has been going into Gaza and they've been mowing the lawn, killing children. Now, why did they kill the children? Because they don't want them to grow up. They're trying to stop reproduction. Same reason why Israel years ago sterilized Ethiopian Jewish women against their will, because they didn't want them to reproduce. They don't want more of them. That's why. And anyone with a brain can see this. And I think a lot of people have allowed their, we're not even going to say religion because that's an excuse. They've allowed their partisanship. They've allowed their hero worship of said politician to make excuses for it. Well, a lot of people didn't make excuses during the Vietnam War. A lot of people stood up and fought back during the Vietnam War. Don't forget the massive protests that happened in this country against the Vietnam War because the American people were seeing all the children and the women that were being killed in Vietnam. We can't forget that. We can't forget that. The children, again, Sham was killed alongside her big brother. These are children. What did they do wrong? Nothing wrong. Brothers Islam, Ahmad, Yazin, and Ab al-Rahman, Mcdad, ages 14, 12, 8, and 3. They were killed in Khan Yunis this year. These are kids. And I don't care whatever happens from here. Never forget that the U.S. and Israel killed these kids. Never forget. These children are innocent. They did nothing wrong. People will remember. Now, I tell you again, that number, 400,000. So why are people still saying the old number? Not just people, politicians on both sides, politicians that are Republican and politicians that are Democrat. This was Bernie Sanders just recently on Joe Rogan.
It was attacked by Hamas, and Hamas is a terrible terrorist organization. They killed 1,200 people, which in a small country like Israel is a lot of people. Terrible, terrible attack. It's a war crime. Israel had a right, in my view, to defend itself. But the Netanyahu government...
Stop. What Bernie Sanders does not tell you, and this is what I mean by control opposition, what he does not tell you is that under international law, people who are occupied have a right to resist with arms. Why doesn't Bernie say that? Why doesn't Bernie Sanders tell that to Joe Rogan or anybody else when he brings up this issue? Let's go on.
Government did not have a right to kill 52,000 people in Gaza, wound over well over 100,000. And right now, as we speak, Joe, children are starving to death because of Israel's blockades.
Yeah.
Starving to death. And I brought forth 2 resolutions.
Let's go back.
To kill. Israel had a right, in my view, to defend itself. But the Netanyahu government did not have a right to kill 52,000 people in Gaza.
52,000 people. Why is Bernie Sanders still giving you old numbers? Because I want to be very clear here, okay? Because this needs to be said. Because on this show, no politician is above criticism. None. I'm not friends with any of these people. The reason why he is keeping that number at 52,000 people is because if he gives the number that I just gave you, that means he has to admit that Israel is committing a genocide. Till this day, Bernie Sanders still will not say that Israel is committing a genocide. He says they're not. That's including most recent interview. He's not alone. Of course, you got Republican politicians saying this too, but the thing is, Bernie Sanders is supposed to be different. Why does he continue to say Netanyahu, right? Netanyahu's the easy person to call out. This is what I told you guys before. It's easy to call out Benjamin Netanyahu. It's harder to call out Israel. Because here's the reality. If you remove Benjamin Netanyahu from that position, he's replaced with another one. The problem is not just Benjamin Netanyahu. The problem is Israel. And if you call out Israel, you say it's a genocide, and you call out Israel, then you really have to take a look at what Israel is and the creation of Israel and the goal that Israel wants. Why doesn't Bernie Sanders mention how Benjamin Netanyahu calls Iran the curse and he wants to expand Israel, which is part of the greater Israel project? Why doesn't Bernie ever mention that? This is what I mean by controlled opposition. And this needs to be said. If you start to get to the point where you're criticizing Israel and not just Benjamin Netanyahu, then Bernie Sanders has to take a hard look in the face. And a lot of people do. Bernie Sanders and a lot of these other politicians who have benefited from the settlements in Israel have to take a look in the mirror, and they have to step back and they have to say, well, wait a minute, I participated in the settlements. Bernie Sanders lived in a kibbutz. You didn't know that? He was never good on this issue. He was never good. There's a video of him from 2015, which I saw way later. I saw it a year ago. I wish I would have seen it back then because I would have never donated money to him. There's a video of Bernie Sanders in 2015 when someone in the audience raised their hand and they asked him about what was happening to the Palestinians. He told them to shut up and sit down. Now, for those who still support the strategy of Bernie Sanders and pushing through the Democratic Party, you got to hold all these people accountable. Accountable. Now, he can't change what happened in the past. But Bernie Sanders sat up there and he marched with civil rights leaders, so he knows what an oppressed group looks like. He knows about Jim Crow laws. He knows that what is happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza is wrong. He knows that they are occupied. He knows that they are oppressed. So why is he trying to pretend like this is just a Netanyahu issue? So for everyone that still supports Bernie Sanders, you need to hold him accountable. Joe Rogan, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, not just in the US, in the world. Everyone, so many people listen to Joe Rogan. And he goes on to this platform with all of these viewers, and he gives 52,000 as the number, which is wrong. The problem is Netanyahu, which is also, it's lukewarm. The problem is Israel. Netanyahu can be replaced tomorrow. The occupation still continues. Netanyahu can be replaced tomorrow. And Israel settlers are still stealing homes in the West Bank. It's a problem. And there's no way you can't sit there and look at and see those pictures of those kids. Now, I once supported Bernie Sanders too. But I also was brave enough and able enough to call him out when he was wrong. And what you have now are a lot of people who have basically latched themselves onto politicians so much to the point where they see him as a hero, where they can't even critique them. When you're wrong, you're wrong. So you share that number with as many people as possible, ladies and gentlemen. Share that report with them. Let the people know it is not 52,000 people. This is a genocide. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.